Hello and welcome. This is Jennifer McGuire. Now, if I had to pick one technique that I think is most important to really grasp in stamping, I would say it's masking. Masking is a great way to create a one-layer card and create some really neat effects on your cards. Now, I have done many videos in the past on different ways to mask, and I will link them all below. And today I'm going to show you a couple ways, including a new product that I think is really fantastic for masking. It's one of the best things I've ever seen. I am using some new products from Lawn Fawn today, some of the cutest stamps I've ever seen. This is the Toboggan Together stamp set, and I think this is the most popular one from this release. I'm stamping this onto Nina white cardstock with my favorite things, black hybrid ink. Both of these products are Copic friendly because I plan to color this reindeer with Copic ink in a bit. However, you could color this with whatever method is best for you. So you could do watercolor or colored pencils, anything you want. The masking technique that I'm going to show you today would work with any of them. So I'm going to stamp this towards the top center of the white cardstock. I really want to have like a blue sky behind him, but I don't want to have to cut him out and stick him onto the blue background. I think he'd be tough to cut out. And also I wanted this to be smooth. And I didn't want to have to cut out a mask to cover him up. So I'm using a liquid masking pen. I'm going to heat set this to make sure that the ink is good and dry. And I'm going to apply over this the Molotow, I think it's Molotow, liquid masking pen. This is a pretty fine tip pen. It works a lot like paint pens that I used to use as a kid, where you push the tip in to kind of get the liquid flowing out. And look how nicely it goes on. Now this is blue, so it's easy to see where you've applied it. And you just color this over any area that you want to mask. You let it dry, do your inking over it, and then you can rub this away. I've done many different videos on different types of liquid masking, and I'll link to those. My favorite in the past has been rubber cement, but that's clear. This is nice blue and it comes off nicely. I also wanted to show you that there is a refill for this pen available. You see that blue bottle there? That's a refill that you can put into that pen. They also have empty pens, so if you wanted to put a different product in it, you can, but I don't really think I'll be using that. I'll just be using the liquid masking pen and then the blue refill bottle that you see here. It's not really that expensive of a product, especially because it works so well. Now I just wanted to show you, once it's dry, you can just rub it off with your finger. Now this little bit I did here, I didn't let it dry completely, so you can see it's kind of peeling up some of the paper. So just make sure that it dries completely before rubbing it off. It is really, really effective. Okay, so now I'm just going to go ahead and color in my reindeer here with the liquid masking. You don't want to go over the same area too much because it starts to kind of want to ball up. You want to just put on an even application all over the reindeer. Now you'll see it doesn't have to be very thick to be effective, and it really doesn't take that long to dry. I wouldn't recommend heat setting it to dry it. Just give it 5 minutes at the most to dry, and I found that that's plenty to be effective. Now, if you don't have this pen, there are other forms of liquid masking available, including rubber cement, but this is so easy to apply. I haven't found a product yet that is this easy to apply, and I am so excited. My friend Heidi at Simon Says Stamp found this product for me, and I am just over the moon pleased with it. So while that dries a bit, let's go ahead and start planning our sky background. Now I do want to ink up that sky, but I do want to mask off the ground he's going to stand on. I could have used liquid masking for the ground, but I just decided to use masking paper instead because I wanted to show you both liquid masking and masking paper in this video. So I've stamped my reindeer onto a piece of Inkadinkado masking paper. It's basically just a sticky back paper, so you could just use temporary adhesive and some typing paper instead if you want to, or Post-it notes. So I've kind of cut a ground for him to stand on, and I'll add that to my card in a moment. Now I do want to do a little bit of stamping on the sky of this guy. So this is the masking paper again, where I stamped the reindeer on the top, and I'm just stamping the sky on here to kind of plan out what the sky is going to look like over him. So this isn't my final card, this is just the masking paper. So this is a snowy background or backdrop stamp from Lawn Fawn. I like it because it's got little dots and stars in it. And I'm just kind of planning where I'm going to mask off this stamping. So I'm just cutting around some of them, just rough here, so that I don't end up with the snowflakes or this background stamp over the entire top of the card, but just in that little area around the reindeer. You'll see in a moment. Okay, so I removed the release paper from the bottom masked piece. I'm going to stick that right underneath there. Now this is that outside piece of the masking that we just did. I'm going to put this over the top. So now I just have this small area around the reindeer. all exposed so that I can put some inking there and some stamping there, and everything under the masking paper will stay perfectly white. This way I'll have a lot of white space, a lot of negative space, so that the card will end up being pretty clean and simple. Now my mask wasn't big enough to cover the entire front of my white stamped piece here, so I'm just using a little bit of Post-it tape to block that extra off. That's my fault. I cut that masking paper a little too small. So now it's time to add the ink over our reindeer. I did touch it with my fingers to make sure that it was dry. Actually, the best way to make sure that the masking fluid is dry is by touching the back and making sure it isn't cool anymore. I'm using an ink blending tool to apply tumbled glass distress ink over the reindeer. I'm starting with the tool on the reindeer and pulling away from it so that it blends nicely into the white space in the background. You could use any blue ink for this, but I really think tumbled glass is a great color for sky, and it's also very easy to blend. You could also use any ink blending tool that you may have. Now I'm stamping that snowy backdrop stamp over this masked area with soft pool ink from Hero Arts. You could stamp it with that tumbled glass distress ink if you wanted to. Now I felt like I needed a few more little flakes falling in the background, so I found this tiny little flake that was in that same stamp set. I'm going to stamp that a few extra times in some of the open areas. I just wanted more stamping in that background. So now that I'm done with this, I'm going to go ahead and peel away my mask, and you can see how nice and bright the white area has stayed behind it. I was really afraid that if I tried to add that inked background without masking up the rest of it, that I might get ink where I didn't want it. Now that everything is dry here, I'm going to go ahead and softly with my finger rub away the masking fluid that is completely dry, and you'll see that our reindeer is completely white underneath it. Now, I think it's actually best to use a dry cloth to remove the masking fluid, because if you get ink on your fingers from that blue background we did, you might accidentally rub it onto the reindeer. So by using a cloth and kind of moving what part of the cloth you're using, you don't have to worry about spreading that ink on. Or you could just wait till that blue ink in the background is completely dry, and then you don't have to worry about it at all. And check out how perfectly white that reindeer is, perfectly masked from that blue background. Now, keep in mind, you could have colored your reindeer first, then put on the liquid masking, and then inked your background. However, I saved my coloring for later, because if I messed up that masking, I didn't want to have wasted all that time doing the coloring already. But it doesn't really matter what you do first. Now, I kept the coloring very simple on this. I'm not going to show it in this video because this video is going to be long enough as is with the other techniques I'm showing you. However, I used my Copic markers. I used E30, E33, and E35 to color the reindeer, and a little bit of R20 on his cheeks. That's all I did. I kept it simple. But remember, you could have used any coloring medium for this. In fact, you could do a watercolor background over that masking pen, which is one of the great things of using liquid masking, because if you had a paper mask, you really can't use water on it. Now, one more thing for our cute little reindeer, we want to do that little red glow around his nose. Now, actually, the red glow should go around his nose and over his face too, but I wanted to keep his face nice and clean. I don't know, I'm defying nature here. So I'm taking that mask from earlier. I'm going to cut out just around his face so that we have the face perfectly masked. The rest of the body doesn't matter. Put that right over the reindeer. Now I have some white pigment ink here from Hero Arts and a little sponge dauber, and I'm going to dab some white ink around his nose. The reason I'm doing this is I want to lighten that blue sky, because if I put red ink right on the blue sky, it would look kind of purple. So I'm just making the area around his nose a little more white. So now when I come in with some red ink, it'll stay true red. So now I'm taking a fresh, clean sponge dauber and some red dye ink. You could use red pigment ink if you wanted to. This is my favorite red dye ink. This is from Ranger. It's the classic cherry. I'm just going to put a little bit of red ink on it and just slightly dab it once, just to do a little bit of red around his nose. Again, you didn't have to mask his face, and you could have that red shining on his face too, but I wanted to keep him nice and clean. Okay, so now I have some strong adhesive. This is Ranger Multimedium. Put a little dab on his nose. I'm going to take a red gem from Hero Arts, take it off the sticky back, and put it onto the strong adhesive. I want to make sure this stays when it goes through the mail. Another option here would be to use a little red sequin or even some red stickles. Now this is the point in which I kind of went over the top. I decided I wanted to add some dimension for the snow. So I'm using a snow pen. This is from Marvy. It's a product that's been around for a long time. And it again is like a paint pen that you push the tip in to get the product flowing. It doesn't look like much when you first put it on the paper, but when you take a heat gun to it and heat set it, it bubbles up. So you get lots of snowy dimension. This is a really fun product and it's very inexpensive. Now, there are other things you could do to get the same effect, but this is something that I think is just a great pen for the holidays because you can do snow very easily. Now, I like to put it on extra thick. That way that when you heat it up, it bubbles up even more. So I'm putting it on thicker than the pen allows. And the way I do that is I push the tip in, which forces kind of a flood of that fluid to come out. And then I dip the pen into that puddle of fluid so that I can really put a lot on top of each other. So I get that snowy dimension. And you can see it really raises up quite nicely. So now let's go ahead and do this on our card. I'm going to put some underneath his feet here and also some little dots of just falling snow from the sky. Now you see I'm putting it on and then I'm coming and taking some more from that puddle that I created so I could really make it thick. I want these dots to be thick so that when we heat it up, it stands up even more. If you just put the amount that comes out from the pen naturally, it just puffs up a little bit, which is fine, but I really wanted lots of dimension. So that's why I squeezed a bunch of it out onto that scrap paper, and I keep dipping into the pen. You could just use it as it flows out of the pen normally, and it would be just fine. Okay, so now I'm going to zap those guys with my heat gun so I can bring the dimension to them and check out how they just puff up really nicely. There are also puff embossing powders out there, but I find that the snow marker gives a lot more dimension. I think there's also one called a liquid applique too. I think that's what it's called, that gives the same kind of dimension, but I've had great luck with this snow marker. So now I'm putting a ton right underneath his feet there, kind of going over it and putting it on as thick as I can, so that now when I bring the heat gun to it, it puffs up nicely. Products like this one I think are really fun because it's just another way to add a little bit of dimension to a card, but it'll still mail nicely. Okay, so now for the rest of the card, we have this sentiment to do next. This is another new Lawn Fawn stamp. This is from Let's Bokeh because it's got all the dots, so you can do a bokeh background. But I thought the sentiment that said shine bright would be really fun with the shiny Rudolph nose. So I'm stamping it with Versamark ink. I'm using my grid in the background along with the grid on my acrylic block to make sure that I stamp it straight. And now I'm using some Wow Red glitter embossing powder. I really like their glitter embossing powders. It has real pieces of glitter in it, but when you heat set it, the powder melts and holds on to that glitter so that it doesn't rub off very easily. Now, it won't give you a super, super fine finish. So if you have a really detailed sentiment, I wouldn't use it. But for this sentiment, it is just perfect and just the right amount of shine. Now on this card, I'm doing a lot of fun finishing touches, a lot of different things, and you don't have to do this many things on one card, but I thought I'd show them all to you here. This is the black glaze pen. It's a dark black, somewhat dimensional pen, and it's great to really intensify the eyes on little critters like this and really make them pop. Now for the background of the card, I wanted some red shine that matched the sentiment. So this is a top folding 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch white note card, and I'm rubbing Versamark ink around the outside edge. So now I can take that same red embossing powder that I used on the sentiment, and I can add it around the outside of my card. This way, the note card will perfectly match my sentiment. Now I don't care how messy this looks because I'm going to put the stamped panel on top of this and only the outside edge will show. So after I've put the powder around all 4 edges, I'm going to zap it with my heat gun and then we'll have the perfect match to the sentiment. I have trimmed my stamp panel down to 3 3/4 by 5 inches, and I'm putting some double-sided tape on the back. Any strong adhesive would work here, but I would not recommend a liquid adhesive here. The reason why is I'm going to put a piece of craft foam that is slightly smaller than that stamped panel right onto the back of this. This way, when we glue this onto our card, it'll be raised up with some nice even dimension. If you use strips of foam tape, it might not make it through the mail so well, so it's better to have this large piece of craft foam, and craft foam is pretty inexpensive. I find that this double-sided tape from Be Creative really holds very well, but any strong dry adhesive would work here. And now we're going to add this onto our red embossed note card. So you can see that the red embossing now looks nice and tidy even though it really wasn't underneath. And that wraps up this card. I did a lot of different things on this one card. You could really simplify it very easily, but I wanted to show you the fun different ways of masking and creating a little bit of dimension and doing the matching background note card. If you're interested in the products, I link to the main ones that I use in my YouTube description below, but head over to my blog at jennifermcguireinc.com for a more detailed supply list to multiple sources. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you taking the time to be here, and I hope to see you soon.